Do you think that after 19 years in F1, Lewis Hamilton could continue to surprise himself with a car? Well, he did it. He said the SF-26 is something unlike anything he has flown. But what does this Ferrari have to break all the molds? Stay, because this is not just a new car. It is the beginning of another Formula One. The SF-26 forced him to relearn, to erase part of their driving memory in order to adapt to a behavior that is not based on the artificial grip of the ground, but on a direct connection between machine and human. The car is 30% less aerodynamic than its predecessor. It's no longer about hitting the accelerator and trusting the ground to keep you stuck. Here the car moves, slides, vibrates, transmits. Each corner is a driver's interpretation, not an automatic execution. The error is not covered by the car, it amplifies it. And that, far from being a weakness, has been its main strength. Weight also plays a crucial role. The SF-26 weighs only 770 kilograms, that is 30 kilos less than the SF-25. That difference, although numerically small, completely transforms the way the car enters a corner, responds to changes in direction, and reacts to mass transfer. The distribution has been completely rethought. Ferrari has abandoned the old obsession with flat stability and has opted for a more aggressive architecture, where agility is the priority. What it gains in dynamism, it demands in piloting. And for someone like Hamilton, that's not a challenge, it's an invitation. During testing at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, Hamilton completed more than 120 laps even in rainy conditions. For many teams, a test like this becomes an unfinished session, full of red flags and altered simulations. But for him, it was one of the most eye-opening experiences of his career. Not because of the return time, not because of chronometric performance, but because for the first time in years he could feel the car again from the seat. He returned to enjoying himself, adapting in real time, making decisions that made tangible differences lap after lap. And most importantly, he smiled again. It had not done so since 2021. That data, invisible in telemetry sheets, is one of the most powerful that can be said. Because it speaks not only of a competitive car, but of an emotional reunion between driver and machine. A symbiosis that can mark the starting point of a new era for Ferrari and perhaps for all of F1. If the SF-26 surprised Hamilton with its radical character, what makes it truly special is that it seems to have been designed with him in mind. And it is not a simple technical compliment. We are talking about a project that, from its conceptual phase, was molded around the strengths and needs of a type of driver that was no longer abundant in modern F1. One who wants to feel every millimeter of the car and not simply drive it with instructions from the wall. This Ferrari is a car that puts the spotlight back on the driver. And that is what Lewis had been demanding for years. Suspension with reactive philosophy. The front suspension system has been redesigned to offer immediate sensitivity. It is harder at the beginning of the stroke, but more progressive in full compression. This allows drivers like Hamilton to use their experience to play with the grip limit in fast corners. Instead of relying on the car to stick to the ground as in the ground effect era, everything is now decided in the first few centimeters of steering input. It's a car that rewards precision, not downforce abuse. Design focused on aggressive riding. The balance between front and rear axle is not neutral. It is deliberately inclined towards a more communicative and reactive front axle, one of the great demands that Hamilton always had at Mercedes and that could never be fully met. The SF-26 offers it. The car wants to turn. You want the pilot to tell you where, not for the inertia of ground effect to force you to follow a preset line. This difference is abysmal for someone who built his career anticipating the car, not correcting it. But this revolution is not limited to the chassis. The engine is also a key piece of the new Ferrari DNA. Enrico Galtieri, head of the power unit, explained it bluntly: 2026 is not a continuation of the V6 hybrid. Something else. The elimination of the MGUH forced the entire energy recovery system to be rethought. It is no longer about recovering heat from the exhaust gases. Now, 50% of the energy comes directly from internal combustion, while the other half is managed through an independent electrical system, much more dependent on driving style. And here Hamilton comes in again. Because this type of engine is not plug-and-play. It doesn't adapt alone. You need a pilot who knows when to regenerate, when to release power, and how to dose the engine torque without causing instability. It's a skill that few have developed at that level, and that Hamilton mastered like no one else in the hybrid era. That's why the SF-26 is not just a new car. It is a car that requires real driving, which returns control to the driver. And that's why, for Hamilton, it represents more than just a technical change. It is a reconnection with the essence of Formula One. It is no longer about driving in fear of the car spitting at you without warning. It's about taming a beast that responds to you, that speaks to you, that lets itself be guided if you know how to do it. And that, perhaps, is the most important difference compared to his recent years. At Mercedes, Hamilton often seemed to fight the car. Here, however, she seems to be dancing with him. And that, when it comes to a pilot of his caliber, can be the beginning of something very serious. Something Ferrari hasn't had in more than a decade. A car built to win, with a driver who knows how to do it. Barcelona was the validation. Not just a technical concept. Not just the design of the SF-26. It was confirmation that Ferrari's long-term plan was working. After years of broken promises, of hopeful starts to the season that were diluted by pressure, this time there was a different feeling. One that came not from empty speeches, but from cold data, from real sensations on the track, and from a figure who has seen it all. Lewis Hamilton. The test at the Circuit de Catalunya was not just another preseason test. It was the exact moment when Ferrari was taken seriously again. During the 3 days of private testing, January 28th, January 30th and February 1st, 2026, Ferrari completed a total of 440 laps. This equates to more than 2,000 kilometers without a single critical chassis or power unit failure. That number, which in another context might seem anecdotal, takes on a totally different dimension when we analyze what it means to complete a complete test without setbacks, with changing conditions and under the demands of completely new regulations. Ferrari was not the one that rolled the most, but it was the one that surprised the most. Mercedes accumulated 500 laps, yes, but Ferrari was the only team that combined high mileage, extreme conditions and benchmark fast lap results. Red Bull, for example, stopped at around 350 laps and had intermittent problems with its hydraulic pressure systems. McLaren, although solid on long runs, suffered interruptions due to fuel system failures. In that context, Ferrari emerged as the most balanced team of the week. The first day, under intermittent rain from mid-morning, was crucial. Many teams decided to wait. Hamilton and Leclerc no. They took to the track when others were calculating risks, and completed 121 laps between them in wet conditions. Instead of seeing rain as a limitation, they turned it into a laboratory. Hamilton put it unfiltered. It was productive. Very solid. I'm proud of everyone at the factory. We weren't afraid to try everything. It was literally the first time he drove a Ferrari in the wet. And he mastered it. The second day, January 30th, offered a dry and continuous session. There, the SF-26 displayed another of its key attributes: consistency. 174 laps in a single day. Hamilton in the morning, 85 clean turns, no locks or interruptions. Leclerc in the afternoon, 89 laps with increasing load and progressive adjustments in setup. And most importantly, both pilots agreed on the technical feedback. There was consistency between what they felt and what the telemetry showed. Something that, as Hamilton confessed, never quite happened in my final years with Mercedes. Leclerc, for his part, also showed speed. His 1 minute and 18.223 seconds placed him third in Thursday's morning session. But beyond the times, what caught attention was the body language. Both on and off the track, the atmosphere at Ferrari had changed. For the first time in years, there was no artificial tension. There were no premature excuses. There was order, method, a clear plan. Barcelona was not just a test. It was a turning point. It was the moment where Ferrari's immediate past stopped caring and began to weigh what is coming. And the most symbolic thing is that this rebirth was not carried out by a young debutante, nor by an emerging promise. It was Lewis Hamilton. The same one that was discarded, that was terminated, that spent 3 years fighting against cars that did not respond. Today, at 41 years old, he is the one who leads the timetable. But more important than that, he is the one who has recovered the initiative. What we saw in the SF-26 is more than just a good car. It is a technical manifesto, a declaration of principles. It is the first big bet of the post-MGUH era, with a radical focus on flexible architecture, mechanical control, and piloting sensitivity. And it is also a human bet, because Ferrari did not sign Hamilton because of his past. He signed him for what he represents, for your demand, because of its ability to filter what works and what doesn't, because of that intuition that only pilots who have been champions multiple times have, and, above all, for his ability to lead an entire team in the same direction. But we must not fall into triumphalism. A test does not win championships. What you can do is lay the foundation. And Ferrari, for the first time in years, appears to have built a foundation that doesn't collapse at the first corner of reality. In Barcelona, they not only rode more, they rode better. They learned faster. They adjusted more finely. They reacted more clearly. And all this without showing yet his entire arsenal. Now, the question is no longer whether SF-26 is any good. The real question is whether he can evolve quickly enough in the face of pressure from teams like McLaren, which has just won the championship, or Mercedes, which seems to have rediscovered part of its identity with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. And Red Bull? It remains a mystery. The technical change and internal pressure has left them disoriented. But underestimating them would be a mistake. Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.